Hello and welcome to a very special deep dive.
It is Sunday, February the 8th, 2026.
And if you're a Manchester United fan, I have a feeling it's a very, very good Sunday.
I think that's a bit of an understatement.
Yeah, if you listen closely, you can probably still hear the singing from the Stretford end. We are, of course, here to unpack Manchester United's 2-0 victory over Tottenham Hotspur at Old Trafford. But look, I'm going to try and keep my feet on the ground here.
Someone has to.
We need to be objective. But it's hard, isn't it? Because the whole mood, the entire atmosphere,
Yeah.
it has just palpably shifted.
It absolutely has. And look, it's so tempting to get carried away, but you're right, we need to be careful. But the contrast is, well, it's night and day, isn't it? Compared to the suffering, and I'm using that word because that's what the data showed, is what your eyes told you.
It's what it felt like.
It's what it felt like under the previous regime. Now we're seeing joy. We're seeing, a bit of fluidity. We're seeing players who look like they actually know each other's names, which is a start.
A definite improvement.
But our mission today, I think, is not just to celebrate a single win. We need to really unpack what's going on. The numbers behind this huge change in, for want of a better word, vibes.
Vibes, yeah.
We've got to look at the tactical shifts under Michael Carrick, which I have to say are a lot more clever than people are giving him credit for. It's not just let them play. And, of course, we have to do it. The autopsy of the Ruben Amorim era that fans are still furiously debating online.
It is such a fascinating moment for the club. It really is, because you have this huge tension, this split in the fan base. On one side, you've got the fans screaming, "We are back!" They're ready to declare the title race on.
And you're booking the hotels for the final.
Absolutely. And then on the other side, you've got the more cautious voices, probably people like yourself, whispering, "Hang on a minute, don't get carried away."
Well, we've been hurt before.
We have. That's the thing. It's the fear of the false dawn. We all remember the early days of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and that sort of muscle memory of pain is, I think, what's keeping a lid on the optimism for some. But, I mean, when you look at the facts, it's hard not to be impressed.
Statistically, yeah, it is impressive. But we have to contextualize what impressed means in this situation. Let's just lay out the headline figures before we get into the real nitty-gritty. Manchester United 2, Tottenham Hotspur 0.
A lovely scoreline.
It is. But more than that, it's 4 wins in a row for United. 4. I actually had to double-check that stat because it just feels like a lifetime ago.
It was February 2024. That's how long it's been. Almost 2 full years since this club has had any kind of consistency. It's just been stop-start, 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
It's unbelievable. And maybe even more telling is that this is the first win against Spurs since October 2022. I mean, just think about what's happened since then.
That was the Ronaldo hat-trick game.
Exactly. It feels like a different geological epoch in football terms. Players, managers, owners, everything has changed since then. So, yes, the result itself is good. But it's the manner of the result, I think, that we really need to dig into.
I agree. It wasn't a smash and grab. It wasn't a lucky deflection off someone's backside. It was a performance, a proper performance.
It was controlled.
And we also have to mention the context of the day itself, which I think is so important. We can't just gloss over this. It was the 60th anniversary of the Munich air disaster.
Yeah.
Reefs were laid. The silence was impeccably observed. It just always adds this extra layer of weight, of significance to a game at Old Trafford. You can feel it even through the telly.
You can. It focuses the mind, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It sort of strips away all the noise and the nonsense of the Premier League for a moment and reminds everyone, the players, the staff, the fans, what the institution is actually about.
The identity.
The core identity. And I think, in a way, having a figure like Michael Carrick in that dugout, someone who lived that history for so long as a player, who captained the club, who knows the weight of that shirt, it just felt, I don't know, aligned. It aligned perfectly with the gravity of the weekend. And the performance, I thought, was respectful of that occasion. It wasn't chaotic. It was, as I said, controlled. And control is a word we have not been able to associate with Manchester United for, 18 months?
At least. Controlled is the perfect word. But let's be honest, the game itself,
we need to break it down. Because one of the sources we were looking at put it perfectly. They said, not fun, is it?
Referring to Spurs' experience, I take it.
Exactly. How ruthless United were, but also how Spurs just, they imploded. It was this really strange cocktail of United competence and pure Tottenham chaos.
Spurs imploding is, well, it's almost a given, isn't it? It's the free space on the bingo card. But you have to give United credit for forcing that implosion. They didn't just stand back and watch it happen. No, absolutely not. So let's look at that first half hour. United started. Well, they looked crisp, didn't they? Tactically, on paper, a 4-2-3-1, but very fluid.
It was. But Spurs were in the game, let's be fair. It wasn't one-way traffic from the first whistle. They had a bit of possession. They were probing, looking for openings. And then the 29th minute happens.
Yeah.
The incident. The moment that changes the entire match.
Cristiano Romero. The red card. Okay, let's really get into this because the fan reaction has just been nuclear. He goes in for a challenge on Casemiro, and I use the word challenge very, very loosely.
Calling it a challenge is generous. It was a reckless, studs-up lunge. I mean, in modern football, with VAR, with all the emphasis on player safety, you just cannot do that. You can't leave the ground with your studs showing like that. It's completely indefensible.
It was so nasty. We've been scrolling through the fan threads, and the descriptions are just career-ending tackle, disgraceful, cowardly. And honestly, when you watch the replay in slow motion, Casemiro is so lucky his ankle is still attached to his leg.
The torque on the joint, you see it bend. It makes you wince just watching it.
It really does.
And this brings up the massive debate around Romero, doesn't it? Because you have this complete dichotomy. Spurs fans, and to be fair, some pundits, they see him as this aggressive, world-class defender. A World Cup winner who plays on the edge. They call it passion or grit.
Yeah, the shackles are off kind of player.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then you look at the cold, hard data of his discipline. This was his second red card of this season already, and his sixth for Tottenham overall. In the Premier League era, that makes him a statistical liability. You cannot build a consistent title challenge around a player who is unavailable for 10% of your season just through suspensions. At some point, that aggression just becomes pure recklessness.
And the fans picked up on something else, which I think is what really boiled their blood. It was his reaction. This is where the cowardly comment comes from. Immediately after he nearly snaps Casemiro's leg in two, Romero hits the deck himself, clutching his own face or leg or something, faking an injury.
Trying to con the ref.
Yeah, trying to distract from what he'd just done.
And it's the theatrics that annoy people the most, I think. It's that total lack of accountability. If you're going to be the hard man, then own it. Stand up. Take the card. Don't roll around looking for sympathy when you've just planted your studs halfway up someone's shin.
One of the sources just flat out called him a thug.
Yeah.
And it's getting harder and harder to argue against that label when you see challenges like that combined with that kind of simulation. It wasn't even a tactical foul, was it? It wasn't cynical, but smart.
No, a tactical foul is when you trip someone to stop a counterattack. It's a yellow card, you take it for the team. This was just dangerous, malicious play. And the collective sigh of relief around Old Trafford when Casemiro got back to his feet. You could feel it through the screen. There was a genuine fear his season was over right there.
The old warhorse, he just got on with it. He was subbed later, but he walked away from it, which is the main thing. So, okay, Spurs are down to 10 men, 29 minutes in. And normally, you know what happens. A team goes down to 10 against a big rival. They collapse into a low block.
Park the bus.
Park the bus, everyone behind the ball, and just pray for a 0-0 or nick a goal on the break. But Spurs, they didn't do that, did they?
No, and this is where the game was truly won and lost tactically. But before we get to the madness of their 10-man approach, United capitalized. They didn't let Spurs settle. 38th minute, just 9 minutes after the red, the breakthrough. Bryan Mbeumo.
The man is becoming a cult hero, isn't he? He was a signing that, raised a few eyebrows, but my word, he has delivered.
He is the boogeyman for goals right now. A lovely left-footed shot, bottom right corner, so clinical. But let's talk about the assist, because this is where you start to see the Carrick effect in miniature.
Mainoo, yeah. And it came from a corner.
Crucially, following a corner. A set-piece goal. Now, to be completely fair to Ruben Amorim, the stats do show that set-piece efficiency was one of the few things that actually improved under him.
That's true.
Structurally, they were better drilled, the delivery was better, but the execution here, this is different. This is the second phase. Mainoo finds that little pocket of space, delivers the ball to Mbeumo. That's the fluidity we're talking about.
Right.
In the previous system, Mainoo might have been instructed to just hold a rigid position outside the box. His job was to be a safety valve, stop the counterattack. Here, he's reacting to the play. He sees the space, he attacks it. It's intelligent football.
And the fans absolutely loved it. And Mbeumo just has that knack, doesn't he? He knows where the goal is. It just settled all the nerves. Because going into halftime 1-0 up against 10 men is a completely different world to it being 0-0.
Oh, massive difference. At 0-0, the crowd gets edgy. You start thinking, oh no, is this going to be one of those days where we can't break them down?
Yeah, the frustration builds.
1-0 up, it forces the opposition to come out, even with 10 men.
Hmm.
And that just opens up even more space. Which brings us to the second half, and this is where, for me, the tactical conversation gets really fascinating. As we said, Spurs are down to 10. Conventional wisdom, common sense even, suggests you tighten up, play a 4-4-1 maybe, and try to nick something on the break. What do Spurs do? They keep playing a high defensive line.
It was absolute suicide. I was watching it, and United fans online were just baffled. Sources were calling it naive tactics. I mean, you've got the pace of Mbeumo, of Ahmad, these rapid players, and Spurs are pushing their center backs up to the halfway line. It felt like they were actively inviting United to score a second.
It speaks to the rigidity of certain modern coaches, doesn't it? They are so ideologically committed to their system, high-pressing, high-line football, that they won't adapt, regardless of the game state.
No matter what.
It's admirable in a purely philosophical sense, I suppose, but in the real world, it's pragmatic suicide. But hey, it allowed United to just completely dominate the ball, 65% possession in the end. We saw these little moments of what the fans are calling tiki-taka.
I saw that. There was one passage of play with about 25 passes.
There was a real flow, a confidence, to just keep the ball, move the opposition around, and wait for the opening. It wasn't frantic, it wasn't desperate, it was mature. They played keep ball until Spurs were just exhausted from chasing shadows.
And then, inevitably, the clincher arrives, the 81st minute, the captain steps up, Bruno Fernandes.
And what a goal. But again, you have to look at the assist. Diogo Dalot. We absolutely have to put a pin in Dalot for later because his redemption arc is incredible, but that cross...
Oh, it was a peach, as the fans said.
An absolute peach, whipped in with pace right into that corridor of uncertainty. Perfect.
And Bruno's there, right-footed, center of the box, bang, 2-0, game, set, and match. But there's a milestone here that is just... It's staggering. We cannot ignore it. That was Bruno's 200th goal contribution for Manchester United.
200. Just let that sink in. For context, at the same time frame since he made his debut back in January 2020, the only player in the entire Premier League with more goal contributions, that's goals plus assists, is Mohamed Salah.
That's the company he's in.
That puts him in the absolute, undisputed elite bracket.
Yeah.
We are talking about a player who is, statistically speaking, building a legendary status at the club. He creates, he scores, he's never injured, he's an absolute machine.
And yet he still gets so much stick. People say he moans too much or he gives the ball away cheaply. But the fans in the post-match threads today were absolutely raving about his intelligence. They all pointed to his post-match interview.
I saw that, yeah.
He was analyzing the goals, the mistakes with such clarity. He's not just a player out there running around. He's thinking the game on another level. He honestly sounded like a manager in waiting.
He is the heartbeat of this team. He always has been. But under Carrick, he seems, I don't know, liberated. He's still pressing from the front. He's still dropping deep. But he's doing it within a structure that actually supports him. It doesn't look like he has to do it all on his own anymore.
That's a great point. He isn't trying to win the game with a Hollywood pass every single time he gets the ball, which was a criticism of him in the past. He seems to trust the players around him now. No, it wasn't all perfect, was it? We did have some missed opportunities. The scoreline could have been much more flattering. Ahmad had a goal ruled out for a very tight offside. Matthias Cunha had one chalked off as well. We could have, and probably should have, won this 4 or 5-0.
We absolutely could have. And that brings us to the Sesko moment late in the game. Benjamin Sesko comes on, gets a massive chance right at the death, and just fluffs it.
Oh, the fan frustration was palpable. You could feel it through the screen. All the comments were, should have buried it, needs to be a killer. And immediately the comparisons to Ruud van Nistelrooy started flying. Ruud would have torn the net off with that. It's that impossibly high United standard, isn't it?
It is. It's the standard for Manchester United #9. You live and die by your conversion rate. But, we do have to have a little bit of perspective. He only played for 15 minutes. The game was already won.
Right.
Some of the more level-headed fans were rightly pointing out that people were crying over nothing. The lad's young. He's still developing. But you're right. At Manchester United, even in a comfortable 2-0 win, if you miss a sitter, you're going to hear about it. The margins for error in the fans' eyes are just non-existent. They demand ruthlessness.
Total ruthlessness. Right, let's zoom out a bit from the specific incidents and talk about the bigger picture, because this is where it gets really interesting. Section 2 of our deep dive, the tactical renaissance, or, as some are calling it, simplicity versus system.
This is the nerdy stuff, but it's so important.
It's the core of it all.
It is. This is the heart of the Carrick ball phenomenon.
Yeah.
Because if you actually look at what Carrick has done, He hasn't come in and reinvented the wheel. He hasn't arrived with a 400-page dossier on inverted false nines and rotating box midfields. His core philosophy seemed to be just simplicity.
Playing players in their natural positions. I mean, what a radical concept, right? It seems so blindingly obvious.
It sounds ridiculous to even say it out loud, doesn't it? But after the tactical contortions of the Amorim era, it feels genuinely revolutionary.
It does.
Under Amorim, we saw players shoehorned into that 3-4-3 system that just did not fit their profiles. We had wingers playing as wing backs. We had central midfielders being asked to cover huge, wide areas they just didn't have the legs for. Under Carrick, if you look at the heat maps and the visuals from the game, the players are simply closer together. They're not isolated on opposite touchlines, and that proximity allows for those little intricate passing triangles. The fans are calling it the Bermuda Triangle flow state.
I absolutely love that description. Bermuda Triangle flow state.
Yeah.
The ball goes in and the opposition just disappears. It sounds magical, but let's break down that midfield trio specifically. Mainoo, Casemiro, Bruno. It works. Why does it work now when it fundamentally didn't before?
It works because the balance has been restored. Look at Mainoo. Under the previous system, he was often given these really rigid positional instructions that just stifled his natural game.
Yeah.
He was constantly worrying about where he should be on the pitch rather than just playing what he saw in front of him.
Right, playing to a system, not the game.
Exactly. Under Carrick, he's allowed to dribble, he's encouraged to beat a man, and when a midfielder does that, it creates chaos for the opposition's shape, and it creates space for everyone else. This is relational play. It's players reacting to each other, not just reacting to a pre-programmed zone on a tactics board.
And what about Casemiro? 100th Premier League appearance for him today. He looked solid. He didn't look like he was running in treacle, which, let's be honest, he often did earlier in the season. He actually looked mobile.
Because he's less exposed. It's that simple. He has legs around him. He's part of a structure that doesn't leave him defending 40 yards of open space all on his own. This is the key difference between a two-man midfield in a 3-4-3 and a three-man midfield in a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. Casemiro has support.
He can be the destroyer again.
Precisely. He can go and engage the ball carrier, make the tackle, knowing that if he gets bypassed, there's cover behind him. That confidence makes him a fundamentally better player. He's not second-guessing himself.
Now, we have to talk about Diogo Dalot. You mentioned him earlier. This is a guy who, let's be frank, has been absolutely abused by sections of the fan base over the last year. He was the #1 scapegoat for a lot of defensive frailties.
He was. Whenever a goal was conceded, the first finger was always pointed at Dalot.
Always. But look at him now. The fans are saying he looks reborn. And the tactical shift is so key here, isn't it? He's inverting into midfield at the right moments, which he's good at, offering that extra body, but he's also just being a solid fullback again. He's defending one-on-one against tricky wingers and winning his battles. He's not being asked to be a winger 1 minute and a third center back the next.
The role has been simplified. His responsibilities are clear.
And the fan sentiment has just flipped 180 degrees. You've got comments now saying, "Suck it, haters," and he's playing for the badge. It just goes to show how quickly narratives can change in football when the system actually suits the player. 1 week you're a liability, the next you're a cult hero.
He really does. And this brings us right to the heart of it, doesn't it? The inevitable comparison. The ghost at the feast. Carrick's vibes versus Amorim's structure.
It's the main talking point everywhere. And the main criticism of Carrick, if you can even call it a criticism, is that he isn't some tactical genius. He's just letting them play. It's just vibes. But is that a fair assessment?
I don't think it is, no. I think there is a real sophistication in that simplicity. He's not just rolling the balls out. He's trusting the player's quality and putting them in a framework where that quality can shine. And as a result, we are seeing the return of what the fans call the United way. Wave after wave of attack, fast vertical transitions, flair. I mean, we saw back heels yesterday. It's entertaining football. Amorim's football, for all its supposed structural integrity on a whiteboard, was just dour to watch. And in modern football, if you aren't winning, you at least have to be entertaining. Amorim was neither.
He was failing on both counts.
Carrick understands that at Old Trafford, you have an obligation to attack, to excite the crowd. It's in the club's DNA.
And what about the pressing? Is it actually better organized, or is it just more enthusiastic because the players are happier?
I'd say it's improved. It's definitely improved. Bruno is leading it really well from the front. Now, some fans are still a bit worried that it can be easily bypassed at times, and Spurs did have a couple of moments before the red card where they played through the lines quite easily. But the difference is the back four looked solid and snuffed out the danger. So it's not perfect yet, but it's energetic. It feels like the players believe in the press now, whereas before, they looked like they were pressing because they were told to. There's a big difference. Right. Okay. Let's take a deep breath. We have to go there. Section 3. The autopsy of the Ruben Amorim era. It feels a bit like digging up a grave, but we have to understand what went so wrong to appreciate what's going right.
We have to do it. You're right. It's essential context for this whole resurgence. You can't appreciate the light if you don't understand the dark. And it was pretty dark for a while there.
It's just brutal how quickly that narrative has shifted, isn't it? He went from being the savior, the next Mourinho, as a tactical mastermind, to a distant memory, or as one source rather bluntly put it, a distant fraud.
Look, the word fraud gets thrown around far too easily on football Twitter, and it's usually unfair. But the anger from the fans towards Amorim is rooted in something very specific, and I think it's a valid criticism. Stubbornness.
The 3-4-3 system. The hill he was prepared to die on.
He lived and died by it. It was this rigid, dogmatic adherence to that 3-4-3 system, despite it being painfully obvious that he did not have the right personnel for it.
Especially in midfield. He wanted to play a two-man midfield with players who were crying out for the support of a third man. He wanted to play with attacking wingbacks when what he had were traditional fullbacks and out-and-out wingers. It was like trying to hammer a square peg into a round hole and then getting angry at the peg for not being round. He just refused to adapt to the squad he inherited.
There was one fan comment that just summed it all up for me. It said, "You have no idea how to put the players on the pitch and how to play after 3 months. Goodbye." It's that feeling that he was a system manager who was completely incapable of adapting to the reality of the Premier League. He had his system, and if it didn't work, well, it must be the players' fault.
And the stats, they're just damning when you look back. You look at that run they had from January to April last season. It was relegation form.
It really was.
The few wins they did manage to scrape together were often against the sides that eventually got relegated. Ipswich, Leicester, Southampton. When you strip those results away, the record against competent mid-table or above Premier League teams was horrific. The XG, the expected goals against top half teams, was consistently lower than the opposition's. Week in, week out, we were getting tactically outplayed.
And the standout moments of failure. Losing at home to 10-man Everton. That seems to be the one scar that still hasn't healed for a lot of the fan base.
That was the absolute nadir. Losing to a team with 10 men is bad enough. Losing at home to 10-man Everton when you're supposed to be Manchester United turning a corner, it's unforgivable. That was the moment, I think, that the majority of the fan base just completely checked out on him. It showed a total lack of tactical agility from the sideline. He had no plan B for how to break down a deep, low block.
There was also that whole debate that raged for a while about the language barrier. The idea that maybe the players just didn't understand his complex tactical instructions because his English wasn't perfect.
Which I always thought was a very weak argument, to be honest.
Me too.
Football is a universal language. You're dealing with a multinational squad. I really don't think they misunderstood the instructions. I think the instructions were just fundamentally wrong for the players he had available. If a player looks confused on the pitch, it's usually because he's being asked to do two incompatible things at the same time, like press the opposition fullback, but also cover the 50 yards of space the wingback has left behind him. That's not a language issue. That's a tactical flaw.
Well said. Now, to be impartial, we do have to represent the minority view. There is a small defensive Amorim camp out there. It's shrinking by the day, but it does exist.
It does. And look, they make some valid points, particularly around fitness and discipline. Amorim did come in and try to weed out what he called the bad actors. Jadon Sancho was mentioned as someone he moved on pretty quickly, setting a standard. And he undoubtedly improved the squad's physical baseline.
The running stats went up.
The pressing metrics, the distance covered, sprints per 90, all of that went up under him. The team is fitter now than it was a year ago. That's a fact.
So the argument goes that Carrick is essentially harvesting the fruit that Amorim planted. Amorim did the dirty work, the grueling fitness sessions, the weeding out of bad influences, and now Carrick gets to come in and enjoy the fun part.
It's the foundation argument. And, logically, it does hold some water. You don't get this fit overnight. Carrick hasn't had a preseason to work with them. So, yes, the players are, to an extent, running on Amorim's engine, but most fans reject this idea vehemently.
Oh, completely.
Their rebuttal is simple and I think very powerful. Amram made good players look bad. They point to the immediate night and day improvement under Carrick, literally within 3 days of him taking over, as all the proof you need that Amram was holding them back tactically, even if he helped them physically.
It is a very compelling rebuttal when you see the exact same group of players suddenly look cohesive, creative, and confident just 72 hours later. It's very hard to argue that it was some long-term fitness plan suddenly coming to fruition. It just looks like the shackles were taken off. It looks like they were told, right, lads, forget all that. Go and enjoy yourselves.
Exactly. And that leads us directly into the biggest question facing the Manchester United board right now. Section 4 of our deep dive. The managerial dilemma. To sign or not to sign.
The new manager bounce. It is a terrifying phrase for United fans, isn't it? It sends shivers down the spine.
It haunts them because they live through the ultimate new manager bounce. With Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, what was it, 14 wins in 19 games. It was euphoric. That night in Paris,
Unforgettable.
he got the job permanently. And then, slowly but surely, the tactical limitations started to show. The team eventually hit a ceiling because vibes and counterattacks can only get you so far against elite systematic coaches like Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp.
And that is the fear. Giving the interim manager the job based on pure emotion and a good run of form, and then regretting it 6 months down the line when the honeymoon period is well and truly over.
And you can see the pundits tying themselves in knots over it. You've got the likes of Gary Neville and Roy Keane. Allegedly, they ruled Carrick out early on. They were saying, no, he's not the guy. We need a proper manager, a proven winner. Now with 4 wins in a row and the team playing like this, they're having to do some serious mental gymnastics. Do they double down on their initial assessment or do they backtrack? It puts the board in a very, very difficult position.
But let's look at the case for Carrick, because it is getting stronger by the minute. This isn't just 1 or 2 lucky wins anymore.
No, it's a pattern. The results speak for themselves. He's unbeaten in 7 interim games total across his 2 spells in charge. We forget he had that short stint before Rangnick came in.
Beat Villarreal, drew with Chelsea.
Exactly. And now 4 wins in a row. You simply can't argue with the results.
And the squad harmony. That's a big one. The players look happy. You can see it in their body language, the way they celebrate goals. All the reports from the training ground suggest it's a less toxic, more positive environment. More laughter, more togetherness.
And then there's the simplicity argument. Maybe, and this is a big Farrak, maybe United doesn't need a philosopher. Maybe they don't need the next Pep Guardiola to come in and reinvent the game.
Yeah.
Maybe what they need is someone who understands the club, simplifies the instructions, and just lets the incredible talent they have shine.
Like Ancelotti at Real Madrid.
That's a great comparison. Carlo Ancelotti isn't known for a rigid, complex system like Guardiola, but he is a master of man management. He manages the players, not the tactics board. Could Carrick be that kind of profile for United? The quiet leader who commands respect?
Well, the fan consensus certainly seems to be shifting. The dominant feeling now is if he gets top 4, if he gets us back into the Champions League, he must be considered for the job full-time.
And it's hard to argue against that, isn't it?
Yeah.
If he delivers Champions League football from the position they were in, which was mid-table mediocrity, flirting with the bottom half of the table, that is a massive, massive achievement. It would be one of the great managerial rescue acts.
But then on the other hand, you look at the alternatives. The big names that are always floating around in the ether: Tuchel, Nagelsmann, Luis Enrique.
The proper managers, the ones with the glittering CVs. And there is a fallacy among some fans that you need a big name manager to be a big club. So they're having this debate now. Is the PE teacher, which is the derogatory nickname some people use for Carrick, is he actually the best fit? Or do you go for a tactical wizard like Nagelsmann, who is brilliant but might clash with the board or the senior players?
It is the classic head versus heart debate, isn't it? Your head says, go and get Nagelsmann, build a proper tactical dynasty. But your heart says, Carrick is one of us, he gets the club, and look, we're winning games and playing well.
And United's own history warns us. They've tried the proven winner route with Mourinho and Van Gaal, and that ended in tears. They've tried the project manager route with Ten Hag and Amram. Maybe the club legend route, specifically with Carrick, is different this time.
Why? What's different from Ole?
Because Carrick has actually learned his trade as a coach for years under different managers. And as a player, he was a thinker. He wasn't just instinct. He was the brain of that Sir Alex Ferguson midfield for a decade. He sat deep. He watched the entire game unfold in front of him. That's a pretty good vantage point for a future manager.
That's a brilliant point. He was analyzing the game from the center circle for years. It makes perfect sense that he would be a more cerebral manager. Okay, let's widen the lens. Section 5, wider implications and the league table.
Because suddenly, the race is on.
It is. We are chasing Aston Villa and Chelsea for that coveted top 4 spot.
And maybe more. I hesitate to even say it.
Oh, go on, say it. The fans are certainly saying it.
Well, the delusion, or the optimism, depending on how you want to frame it, is definitely creaking back in. I've seen the "we are winning the league, aren't we?" comments popping up.
I saw one that said, if City lose their next game and we win, the gap is down to single digits.
And this is where we have to be the adults in the room and provide the reality check. Arsenal are effectively 13 points clear when you factor in their massive goal difference. Catching them from here would require a collapse of genuinely historic proportions.
A total implosion.
We are talking about a Devon Locke-style collapse at the Grand National. It's highly, highly unlikely.
So realistically, it's a battle for third or fourth.
Which is still a huge prize. Financially, for recruitment in the summer, for the prestige of the club, getting back into the Champions League is absolutely vital.
And when you look at the rivals for those spots, Aston Villa seem to be wobbling a bit.
Dropping out of top 5 and shit in the bed, as the fans so eloquently put it. Look, Villa have been fantastic this season, but the pressure of the run-in is a different beast. They don't have the squad depth that United or Chelsea have. A couple of injuries, and they could be in real trouble.
And as for Spurs, oh boy, are they in crisis mode?
It feels like absolute crisis mode. The fans are turning. There's some confusion in the sources we've seen about who their manager even is, with mentions of both Thomas Frank and Ange Postecoglou. But the general sentiment is just one of malaise. They feel rudderless. And losing to United in this manner so comprehensively has clearly shattered their confidence.
So for United fans, they're in that weird position of looking at the fixtures and hoping for a draw between City and Arsenal so they can close the gap on both, however unlikely that is.
It's the hope that kills you, as they say. But for United fans right now, that hope is like a drug. They haven't had a proper hit of it for a very long time. They may be overdosing on it a little bit at the moment, but who can blame them?
You can't blame them at all. Let's just touch on the Spurs' perspective for a moment. The general feeling from their side was that they played nicely but lost.
Which is the most Spurs sentence ever written, isn't it? We had more of the ball, we played the prettier patterns, but we lost 2-0. They complained about the red card, of course. But United fans are, quite rightly, calling that delusional. When you go into a tackle studs up like that, you lose all right to complain about the officiating.
Before we wrap up, we have to talk about fan culture. Because this winning run has spawned some truly incredible side stories. Section 6, the hair guy.
This is modern football fandom in a nutshell, isn't it? Social media influence completely intersecting with the actual game on the pitch.
So for anyone who doesn't know, there is a prominent content creator known as the hair guy who pledged, presumably as a joke at first, not to cut his hair until Manchester United lost a game.
And now he's becoming a talisman. A superstitious good luck charm.
It's got to the point where fans are commenting on the upcoming fixtures, saying things like, hoping West Ham at least get a draw so that guy can't cut his hair. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It is, and you have this strange tension. On one hand, you have fans who are annoyed by these creators who are seen to be profiting off the club's form, grifting they call it. But on the other hand, those same fans are deeply superstitious. They don't want to jinx this good run by having the bloke go and get a haircut. It's completely illogical, but football fandom is illogical.
If United win the next 10 games, this guy's going to look like Cousin It from the Addams Family by the time May comes around.
And he'll probably be the most popular man in Manchester. If we somehow win the league, forget a statue for Carrick, build one for the hair guy.
Right then, outro. Let's look ahead.
Next fixture up, West Ham United. Away from home, London Stadium. That's on February 10th, so it's a quick turnaround. A Tuesday night game.
And this is where the fixture congestion starts to ramp up again. United have definitely benefited from having one game a week recently. It's allowed Carrick time on the training pitch to drill this simplicity into them. Now the intensity really hits.
And this will be the real test. Can the squad rotate effectively? Can older players like Casemiro play 2 intense games in 3 days? Can Carrick change his starting 11 without the team losing that rhythm and flow? We haven't really seen his B team yet.
The Carrick dilemma is what's going to define the entire summer for the club.
It absolutely will. Is this revival sustainable? Or is it just the sweet relief of not being shouted at by a rigid, dogmatic tactician anymore? Is this the rebound relationship that feels amazing because the last one was so toxic, but ultimately isn't marriage material.
That is the perfect analogy. Are Manchester United in love with Michael Carrick, or are they just on the rebound from Ruben Amorim?
For now, I don't think the fans care. They're just enjoying the ride. They're walking into work on a Monday morning with a smile on their face. And in football, that's half the battle.
It certainly is. GGMU, as they say. Glory, glory man, it did.
Indeed.
So, one final provocative thought for you to chew on, listener. If Michael Carrick wins the next 10 games, can the board actually say no to giving him the job permanently? And more importantly, would saying yes be the exact same mistake they made 7 years ago with Ole, or is this time different? Is Michael Carrick the real deal?
That is the multi-million-pound question they have to answer.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll be watching that West Ham game very, very closely. We'll catch you then.